all the pivot tables we've created so far have pulled their data from within Excel. In fact, from within the same Excel workbook, just on a different sheet. Or we can actually interrogate data held externally, be that in another Excel file or in an external database. So let's explore connecting a new pivot table to a SQL Server database. We start with a new file, so brand new workbook. And then on the data ribbon, we've got get external data from other sources. And in the little drop down, we can see from SQL Server. In order to connect to SQL Server, we need the SQL Server connection information. And I have set up an external SQL Server that will allow you to pull in some sample data. The connection information is actually held in a text file in your working folder called SQL Connection. First thing we require here is the name of the SQL Server, which is actually an IP address and a port number. We then need to log in with a username and password that is also in the connection file. Training's the username, and then one train with a capital T is the password. Next, Excel makes the connection through. Now, if you have access to a number of tables or views within the data, you'd get a list here to choose from, but this login only has access to a view called training data. So that's one we need to select. Next. Now at this point, Excel will actually save a connection string file on your machine should you wish to make this same connection in the future. The idea being that you don't have to go through this whole process of inserting the SQL Server, the username and the password again. So it's going to call the file the IP address, horse events, training data.odc. Now you can put a little tick to say save the password in the file, but it'll only be plain text. That's fine, it's on my machine. And we could add a description and a much more friendly name, and even some search terms should you want to be looking for this connection string on your machine. For the moment, I'm quite happy to just leave that as the ODC default file, and then finish. Apparently I've already got a file with that name. Do I want to replace it? Yes. Now we're at the stage of having connected to the database, told it which set of data we would like to use, and then we're now asked what we would like to do with it. Create a table using the data, create a pivot table report, which is exactly what we're after, a pivot chart, or just for the moment, let's create the connection. Well, we're going with pivot table report. I want to place it in the existing worksheet starting at A1, which is why that's hovering there, and then OK. Now the steps to get to this stage are different than we've done previously, but now it's exactly the same as if the data was in the next sheet. Even though it's been pulled down from the internet across the world, we do exactly the same. Those are our fields, so these are the column headings that are in the data. Town, title, date started, event date, event title, first name, horse name, price and quantity. We're dealing here with a set of data about entering competitions. So if I want to just pull some summaries through, I could choose the class title to go in the rows. And you can see lots of class titles appear. Actually, let's go with event title because there'll be less of those. The event title goes in the rows. And then in the values to work out, let's have the sum of total quantity. That way we get the total number of entries for each event name. Let's then sort these, descending by the sum of that total quantity. So our most popular events are affiliated dressage with 4,349 entries. Now this data is actually set over a number of years, so we could introduce our timeline option based on the event date. Scrolling across 2011, 2012, and 2013. So let's change this months option to years and move this across here. And now we can filter by year. So we could choose 2013 and we see much shorter grid. 2012 becomes much longer and the numbers are much higher. A grand total there of 9231. 2011, 7052, and 2010, 3792. So the numbers have been increasing each year, and we can expand to see more years or less years, just as we did before when we used this timeline tool to filter our pivot table. So everything we've done up to date with pivot tables still applies when that pivot table is looking at external data.